Picture this. You're in a heated argument, your heart racing, words flying like arrows, and suddenly you say something you instantly regret. We've all been there. But what if I told you that ancient Stoic philosophers developed powerful techniques for communication that could prevent such moments? Techniques so effective that they're being rediscovered by modern psychologists and communication experts? Today, we're diving deep into the Stoic art of communication, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll have practical tools to transform the way you speak, listen, and connect with others. In our modern world of instant messages, social media debates, and constant connectivity, the wisdom of the Stoics has never been more relevant. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly heard in a conversation? When did you last walk away from a difficult discussion feeling satisfied with how you expressed yourself? The Stoics understood something profound about human communication that we often forget in our fast-paced digital age. Words have the power to heal or harm, to build or destroy, to connect or divide. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once faced a senator who publicly criticized his policies in the harshest terms. Instead of reacting with anger or using his imperial power to silence the critic, Marcus did something remarkable. He listened. Then, he thanked the senator for his honesty and engaged in a thoughtful dialogue that not only resolved their differences, but strengthened their relationship. This wasn't just political wisdom. It was Stoic communication in action. But before we delve into specific techniques, we need to understand the fundamental principles that make Stoic communication so powerful. At its core, Stoic communication rests on 4 pillars: truth, purpose, timing, and benevolence. These aren't just philosophical concepts, they're practical tools that can transform every conversation you have. Let's start with truth. For the Stoics, speaking truth wasn't just about avoiding lies. It was about aligning our words with reality and our deepest values. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, said, "First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak." This means being honest, not only with others, but with ourselves about our intentions and the impact of our words. Consider how different our daily conversations would be if we applied this principle. Instead of reactive responses driven by emotion, we'd pause to consider the truth of our words. Instead of engaging in gossip or idle speculation, we'd focus on what we know to be true and beneficial. This doesn't mean being brutally honest or tactless. Remember, truth in Stoic philosophy is always balanced with wisdom and compassion. The second pillar, purpose, brings us to a crucial question. Why are we speaking? The Stoics believed that every act of communication should serve a clear purpose. Seneca advised, "Let our speech be such that it makes us better or less bad." This means before we speak, we should ask ourselves, does this need to be said? Will it contribute something valuable? Will it help or harm? This principle becomes particularly powerful in conflict situations. Imagine you're in a disagreement with a colleague. Instead of speaking to win the argument or prove your point, the Stoic approach would have you focus on the true purpose, understanding each other better, finding a solution, or maintaining a positive working relationship. This shift in intention can completely transform the dynamic of the conversation. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of communication is timing, our third pillar. The Stoics understood that when we say something is often as important as what we say. As Epictetus noted, keep silence for the most part and speak only when you must, and then briefly. This doesn't mean being silent all the time. It means understanding the right moment to speak and the right moment to listen. Think about a time when good advice fell on deaf ears simply because it came at the wrong moment. Or when a crucial conversation went poorly because someone was tired, stressed, or emotional. Stoic communication teaches us to be mindful of timing, to recognize when others are ready to hear what we have to say, and when it's better to wait for a more opportune moment. This brings us to benevolence, our fourth pillar. For the Stoics, every act of communication should be grounded in goodwill toward others. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. This principle transforms how we approach difficult conversations, criticism, and disagreements. Instead of seeing others as opponents to be defeated, we see them as fellow humans deserving of understanding and respect. These four pillars, truth, purpose, timing, and benevolence, form the foundation of Stoic communication. But how do we put these principles into practice in our daily lives? How do we transform them from philosophical ideals into practical tools for better conversations, stronger relationships, and more effective communication? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next section, where we'll dive into specific techniques and real-world applications. But before we move on, take a moment to reflect on your own communication habits. Think about recent conversations that went well or poorly. How might these four pillars have made a difference? What aspects of your communication could benefit from more truth, clearer purpose, better timing, or greater benevolence? Keep these questions in mind as we continue our journey into the practical applications of Stoic communication. Now that we understand the foundational principles of Stoic communication, let's explore how to apply them in practice. One of the most powerful techniques the Stoics developed was what I call the pause. It's a simple yet profound practice that can transform our communication. Before responding in any conversation, especially heated ones, we take a brief moment to apply what Epictetus called the preliminary review. Imagine you're in a meeting, and someone harshly criticizes your work. Your immediate impulse might be to defend yourself or counterattack. But the Stoic pause gives you the space to ask three crucial questions. Is my planned response true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This brief moment of reflection can prevent countless communication disasters and strengthen our relationships. Let me share a modern example. Sarah, a manager I worked with, implemented this technique in her team meetings. When faced with challenging situations or conflicts, she would deliberately take a breath before responding. Her team initially found these brief pauses unusual, but soon they noticed something remarkable. The quality of their discussions improved dramatically. Tensions decreased, understanding increased, and solutions emerged more naturally. This is the power of the Stoic pause in action. But effective communication isn't just about how we speak, it's equally about how we listen. The Stoics developed what I call deep listening, a practice that goes far beyond simply waiting for our turn to talk. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of listening with the intention to understand, not to refute. This means setting aside our own agenda and truly focusing on what the other person is trying to communicate. Deep listening involves three levels: hearing the words, understanding the emotions, and grasping the underlying needs or values. When someone expresses frustration about a project delay, for instance, they're not just sharing information about a timeline. They might be expressing concerns about their reputation, anxiety about meeting goals, or a need for more support. A Stoic listener seeks to understand all these layers. Let's explore a practical technique for developing this skill. I call it the 3-breath practice. When someone is speaking, take 3 conscious breaths. The first to quiet your own mental chatter, the the second to focus fully on their words, and the third to connect with their underlying message. This simple practice can dramatically improve your ability to understand and connect with others. But what about those challenging conversations we all face? The ones where emotions run high and understanding seems impossible. This is where the Stoic concept of perspective-taking becomes invaluable. Epictetus advised his students to remember that everyone acts according to what they believe is right, even if their beliefs are mistaken. This insight can transform how we handle conflicts. Consider this scenario. Your colleague consistently submits reports late, affecting your work. The non-Stoic response might be frustration and blame. The Stoic approach would be to first seek understanding. What obstacles are they facing? What pressures might they be under? This doesn't mean excusing poor behavior, but it does mean approaching the situation with empathy and a solution-focused mindset. Here's a powerful technique for practicing perspective-taking. Before addressing a conflict, spend a few minutes mentally putting yourself in the other person's position. Write down 3 possible reasons for their behavior that have nothing to do with malice or incompetence. This exercise often reveals solutions that wouldn't be apparent from an adversarial stance. Now, let's address something that's become increasingly crucial in our modern world: digital communication. The Stoics couldn't have imagined email, text messages, or social media, but their principles are remarkably applicable to these new channels. Their emphasis on clear purpose and benevolent intention is particularly relevant when we can't see the immediate impact of our words. Here's a practical rule derived from Stoic principles. Before sending any digital communication, especially emotional ones, apply the overnight test. Save it as a draft and review it the next day. Ask yourself, would I say this in person? Does it serve a clear purpose? Is it written with benevolence? This simple practice can prevent countless misunderstandings and maintain stronger digital relationships. But perhaps the most challenging aspect of communication is giving and receiving feedback. The Stoics understood that growth requires honest feedback, but they also knew the importance of delivering it wisely. Seneca wrote extensively about the art of correction, emphasizing that timing and manner are as important as the message itself. Let me share a technique I call the feedback sandwich, based on Stoic principles. Start with genuine appreciation, what's working well. Provide specific suggestions for improvement, delivered with benevolence, and end with encouragement and support. But unlike the typical sandwich approach, the Stoic version emphasizes sincerity and genuine concern for the other person's growth. When receiving feedback, the Stoics offer equally valuable guidance. Instead of seeing criticism as an attack, they viewed it as an opportunity for growth. Marcus Aurelius actually thanked his critics, recognizing that they showed him aspects of himself he couldn't see alone. This doesn't mean accepting all criticism uncritically, but it does mean remaining open to the possibility of learning from it. Here's a powerful exercise for transforming how you receive feedback. When someone criticizes you, practice what I call the 3 truths method. First, identify what might be true in their feedback, even if it's uncomfortable. Second, consider what truth about themselves they might be revealing. Third, reflect on what truth about the relationship might need attention. This approach turns criticism from a threat into a tool for growth and understanding. Now let's explore how Stoic communication principles apply in leadership and professional settings. The Stoics believed that true leadership happens through communication that inspires and elevates others. Consider how Marcus Aurelius led the Roman Empire, not through force, but through thoughtful dialogue and consistent example. His private journals, which became meditations, reveal a leader constantly reflecting on how to communicate more effectively with those around him. Modern leaders can learn much from this approach. Instead of giving orders, ask questions that guide others to solutions. Rather than demanding compliance, inspire commitment through clear communication of purpose and values. When problems arise, focus on understanding before action. These aren't just nice ideas, they're practical tools that transform workplace dynamics. Let's look at a specific technique for leadership communication I call purpose cascading. Before any significant communication, clearly identify 3 levels of purpose: the immediate goal, the broader impact, and the alignment with core values. For example, when introducing a new project, explain not just what needs to be done, but why it matters and how it connects to the team's larger mission. This approach creates deeper engagement and more meaningful collaboration. But effective communication isn't just about work. It's crucial in our personal relationships too. The Stoics understood that the closest relationships often present the greatest communication challenges. Musonius Rufus, another great Stoic teacher, emphasized the importance of maintaining philosophical principles even in intimate conversations with family and friends. Here's a powerful practice for improving personal relationships: the evening dialogue. Set aside time each evening for meaningful conversation with loved ones. But instead of just recounting the day's events, focus on sharing thoughts, values, and aspirations. Ask questions that deepen understanding. What challenged you today? What inspired you? What are you learning about yourself? This practice builds stronger connections and prevents the drift that often happens in relationships. Let's address another crucial aspect of modern communication: managing emotional triggers. The Stoics developed sophisticated techniques for maintaining equanimity in challenging conversations. One particularly effective method is what I call emotion mapping. When you feel triggered in a conversation, mentally note 3 things: the immediate emotion, the underlying belief or expectation, and the choice point for responding rather than reacting. For example, if someone dismisses your idea in a meeting, you might feel angry. Immediate emotion, triggered by the belief that you're not being respected. Underlying belief, creating a choice point between defensive reaction and constructive response. This awareness creates space for choosing a more effective communication approach. Social media presents unique challenges that the Stoics' principles can help us navigate. Their emphasis on speaking with purpose and benevolence is particularly relevant in these spaces where reactive communication often leads to regret. Before posting or commenting, apply what I call the legacy test. How will this communication reflect on your character? Would you be proud to have this as part of your communication legacy? Now let's explore one of the most powerful aspects of Stoic communication: the art of silence. The Stoics understood that knowing when not to speak is as important as knowing what to say. They practiced strategic silence, not as passive withdrawal, but as active listening and thoughtful restraint. This practice is particularly valuable in our noisy digital age, where constant communication is often valued over meaningful exchange. Here's a practical exercise for developing this skill. Practice periods of intentional silence in conversations. Instead of immediately filling pauses or jumping in with solutions, allow space for others to fully express themselves. You'll be amazed at how much more you learn and how much stronger your connections become when you master this art of strategic silence. Let's also consider how Stoic communication principles can help us handle disagreements and conflicts. The Stoics viewed disagreement not as a battle to be won, but as an opportunity to reach deeper understanding. They developed a method I call principled disagreement. This approach involves clearly stating your position while remaining open to other perspectives, focusing on principles rather than personalities, and always seeking common ground. Here's a specific technique for practicing principled disagreement. When you find yourself in a heated discussion, pause and identify 3 levels of the disagreement: the surface issue, the underlying concerns, and the shared values or goals. Often you'll find that while you may disagree on the surface issue, there's significant alignment at deeper levels. This understanding creates a foundation for more constructive dialogue. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of body language and nonverbal communication. They understood that our physical presence communicates as much as our words. Epictetus advised his students to pay attention to their posture, facial expressions, and overall demeanor. In modern terms, we might call this embodied communication, ensuring our nonverbal signals align with our spoken message. Let's practice this through what I call the alignment check. Before important conversations, take a moment to ensure your physical presence matches your intended message. Are you maintaining appropriate eye contact? Is your posture open and engaged? Does your facial expression convey the respect and attention you intend? These nonverbal elements can make the difference between successful and unsuccessful communication. As we near the end of our exploration of Stoic communication, let's discuss how to maintain these practices in the long term. The Stoics understood that true change requires consistent practice and regular self-reflection. They would end each day by reviewing their communications, celebrating successes, and learning from mistakes. We can adopt this practice through what I call the communication journal. Each evening, spend a few minutes reflecting on your key communications of the day. Consider 3 questions. What conversations went well and why? Where did I miss opportunities to apply Stoic principles? What will I do differently tomorrow? This regular reflection transforms abstract principles into ingrained habits. Remember, the goal of Stoic communication isn't perfection, it's progress. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice these principles, to learn, and to grow. Even the Stoic philosophers themselves acknowledged that they were constantly working to improve their communication skills. What matters is the commitment to continuous improvement and the willingness to learn from each interaction. Let's conclude with a powerful visualization exercise. Imagine yourself a week from now, consistently applying these Stoic communication principles. See yourself pausing before reactive responses, listening deeply to others, speaking with purpose and benevolence, and maintaining equanimity in challenging conversations. This vision isn't just a dream, it's an achievable reality through consistent practice of the techniques we've discussed. Before we end, let me share one final thought. The true power of Stoic communication lies not in the individual techniques, but in how they work together to transform our relationships and our lives. When we communicate with truth, purpose, appropriate timing, and benevolence, we don't just exchange information. We create understanding, build trust, and strengthen the bonds that make life meaningful. In our next episode, we'll explore how to apply Stoic principles to professional success, building on the communication skills we've developed here. Until then, I encourage you to choose one technique from this episode and practice it consistently for the next week. Notice how it affects your conversations and relationships. Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's learn from each other as we continue our journey in practical Stoicism. Remember, every word you speak is an opportunity to practice philosophy in action. Every conversation is a chance to embody Stoic principles, and every interaction is a step toward becoming not just a better communicator, but a wiser, more thoughtful human being. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Stoic communication. Until next time, practice well and communicate wisely.